sleeping in bed. No more back thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty.
Hello.
Hello.
Everyone, this is Tammy Williams with Things of Interest, and my guest today is Chuck Warper-Husky. Hello, Chuck. How are you?
Hello, Tammy. I'm great to be here.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you so much.
I am so excited about having you here because I'm so interested in what you have to talk about. And tell the audience a little bit about what you're here to talk about, Chuck.
Sure thing. So one of the efforts that my organization, Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice, is working to try to support in the community is expanding the use of restorative justice practices, especially when it deals with kids.
Yes, yes.
There's some great things happening already. The Ypsilanti Community Schools have started to try to work this in. There's talk about Ann Arbor Public Schools and maybe even with the juvenile courts.
Well, that's really, really exciting. Yeah. Really exciting.
So just to back up a little bit, what is restorative justice?
Yes.
You know, we're all familiar with our standard system of dealing with wrongdoing, and what it says is, okay, let's lay the hurt down. Let's find who did something wrong and punish them.
Yes.
But that doesn't really help the problem.
No, it doesn't.
So what restorative justice, it takes a different sense. It says rather than, you know, if crime hurts, if wrongdoing hurts, what promotes healing?
Okay.
And so that might not involve punishment, but it means sitting down with the people affected, the victims and the offenders, and trying to figure out who's hurting, what do they need, and whose responsibility it is. And then work together to try to find a solution that makes things right, not that just punishes the wrongdoing.
I think that's great, and I think it's so special. I had children in the public school systems, and there was no middleman between the school and the things that the children were going through. And it's like the teachers and the faculty only want to deal with the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and they wanted to punish the children for the social things that they did that got them in trouble. And they punished them with like some drastic measures up until like 10-day suspensions.
Right.
And it was like, well, how can these children catch up after, with 10 days suspensions? And they never dealt with the problem. I mean, they never dealt with the social reasons,
Absolutely. I've got a great example on that. I was talking to somebody who's she's helping train peer mediators. She's in the Ypsilanti schools every day. And there was a student who's getting in trouble for cutting class. And so what did the school do? The traditional route is, okay, you're cutting class, well, we're going to suspend you.
Yes.
No, that doesn't help somebody learn. Well, how are they going to learn if they're out of class?
Yes.
But through the introduction of these restorative practices, what she was able to do was she was able to bring in the student, bring in her family, bring in the teacher, and find out, okay, so why is it you're cutting this class? It was just one class she was cutting. She wasn't just cutting out of school the whole time.
Sounds great.
But what they found out was, well, the reason she was cutting that class is because every time she was in class, she was getting harassed.
Wow.
She was getting sexually harassed in the classroom, and she didn't feel comfortable. So she said, I'm not dealing with that. I'm just not going to go. Now, it took a lot of work to get her to feel safe talking about it, to get the family feeling safe. It took a lot more time than just signing that detention slip.
Yes.
Or that suspension slip. But by doing that work and trying to find a solution, right back to those three questions, who's hurting, what do they need, and whose responsibility is it?
Wow. Oh, I'm so excited.
And now, here's the thing. Now, think about that's just one class, one semester. But what's that going to look like in 20 years?
Yeah.
If it started with suspensions and then she's not in school, she's going to miss more classes. It's going to be harder for her to compete for a job. That just is a downhill spiral. We're just pushing off the problem, put it out of the school, and then she's probably going to end up maybe criminal problems, other things.
Yeah.
This is helping put her on a track to success.
Well, it does criminalize the students because if a student, for example, the Ypsilanti school systems, that was the first school system that I know of that had policemen in the school. So if a child walks up to the principal and he's standing next to a policeman and he says, I stole so-and-so's 50 cents, well, automatically the policeman's going to arrest him because a crime occurred. And instead of him saying, well, I went to the principal to get it right or to do better, he's already, in the system.
Right. And that's the thing. It's for me, just the individual response of how do we make this a healing process rather than exacerbating the hurt. That's important on its own. But when you're talking about people in the system, I was talking to Sheriff Clayton a while back, and he says that his approach to things is his job is community safety.
Okay.
Now that's a different approach than just saying my job's to lock people up.
Yes.
So he knows there are times when he will better be able to promote public safety if rather than his deputies going into a system, going into a situation, he's able to talk to somebody in the neighborhood, talk to somebody in the community, and work something out that doesn't involve his office. Because once somebody's in the system, it's hard for him to get out.
Oh, absolutely. It is. There's some horror stories about that once a person got in the system, it just got larger and larger and larger. So, but you're doing this in the Ypsilanti public school system. What kind of support have you gotten so far?
So the current administration of the Ypsilanti Public Schools has been extremely supportive. The superintendent is also the superintendent of the intermediate school district. Scott Menzel has been a huge proponent of it. It's a partnership. So they're working with the Dispute Resolution Center of Washtenaw County. The Dispute Resolution Center is providing the technical expertise, the staffing to help pull this up together. The the school district administration is supporting it. On the ground, it's been, it's change, right? And when you've got change, some people love it. Some people, what we're hearing from some of the teachers is they're saying, finally, now we have some tools.
Yes.
Because suspension, expulsion, detention, it wasn't working. Other teachers, they don't want to learn something new.
Yeah.
So we're finding pockets of people who are on board, pockets of people who are resistant. It takes a lot more time. Again, with that girl, it took 2 days of meeting with everybody.
Yes.
And so, and everything's strapped right now. So that's been a challenge, but people are excited. There have been conversations with the administration of the Ann Arbor Public Schools to see if they're interested in following this lead.
Wow.
And that's something I love, is to see, maybe this is a time when Ann Arbor's going to say we can learn something from what IPSI's doing, rather than just, assuming that, I'm on Ann Arbor City Council, sometimes we assume we know everything. Here's a chance we've really got an opportunity to say we can learn something from our partner communities.
Wow. This is really exciting. I hope that the students and the parents realize how special this is, because it's hard when you have your child is in the school system and they do something and there's just no recourse. There is no recourse for a suspension or punishment or something like that. Nobody wants to deal with the fact that it might be because they like somebody and they hurt their feelings. I mean, is that or somebody did something to them and they were defending themselves, maybe.
And when we talk about that, let's step back a bit. What is it our schools are supposed to be teaching? You're right. It's absolutely more than the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. We need a community, including our schools, that's teaching not just how do you add and spell, but how, when you've got a dispute, right, when your feelings are hurt, how do you deal with that productively and responsibly? And if the only tool we have, here's a problem we're going to punish, here's a problem we're going to lash out. What lesson is that teaching? We need a full toolkit to say, here's a problem. It's not just, boom, there's the punishment, how to make it right. And then somebody messes with you and you're going to look to punish them too. It's, let's step back. How do we make this right? How do we, there's relationships, there's people at stake. We need to help heal that. We need to help make it better. And, suspension, lockup, that's not healing. No,
that's not healing. I can't express enough how excited I am about this. You have a lot of work ahead of you, but it looks like you're making a lot of leeway. I mean, you're moving fast.
And the piece that I'm excited about, getting this into the schools, it would be fantastic, and getting it more bought into in the schools. The other thing that there's some efforts to look at, and this is going to be a harder nut to crack, but I'm hopeful, is the schools, they've just got your permanent record at schools, but it's not a police record. But what happens?
Good.
But what happens when there is an actual run-in with the law? Can we get the legal system bought into trying to use some of these practices.
Can you? Have you? I mean,
There's been some conversations.
Great.
Judge Connors is put in to try to get some money to do some of this. But here's the thing. This is why it takes collaboration.
Okay.
Because we need the judges on board.
Yes.
We need the prosecutors on board. We need everybody on board to say, we're going to give this a try.
Okay.
And we need them to be on board. Here's the thing. You look at the recidivism rate, right? Somebody goes through the traditional legal system.
Okay.
And do they go and reoffend?
Okay.
The recidivism rate is through the roof.
Okay.
Right. Now that's the reality we're facing. Here's the thing that we've got to make sure people are on board with. We take this alternative approach. We take this restorative approach. We're not going to get it right every time. Not everybody's going to be on board. Not everybody's going to turn around and say, okay, I see the harm I did, and I don't want to hurt other people that way. So we're going to have a recidivism rate with a restorative approach too. What we need to make sure there's the buy-in for is the first time we have somebody goes through the restorative justice approach, but then goes and commits another crime. That can't be blow all the whistles, ring all the alarm bells, pull the plug on the program. People are going and reoffending with the traditional system. We're going to have people with this approach too. We need to be ready for that, and that will happen. Doesn't mean the system isn't a good system or even a better system, better approach.
Okay. Well, you're thinking about it. I mean, you're thinking about it. That's a good thing. I mean, all the pros and cons of it is something that you all are considering.
Right.
And
well, for me in my own seat, again, I'm an elected official. Elected officials can be very cautious. We don't want something we did to come back on the front page of the paper as the controversy. Our judges are elected, our prosecutors are elected. They've all got a reason to make sure, we've got to be able to make sure that they can approach this with enough confidence to say, yeah, we're on board, and we're on board for the long haul.
Okay. Well, and you say that you're getting a lot of positive interest in this, and that's great. I always thought that if money wasn't changing hands, I mean, in arresting children, there's a lot of money that the state or the government gets from the money that is paid out. How is that?
Right. The money side of it. Actually, the money side of it cuts both ways, right? Because if I'm a prison guard, I want a lot of people locked up, right?
Yeah.
And actually, you're seeing this big push nationally to prison privatization. So then it's not just a prison guard, but I'm a shareholder. I'm a CEO, and the more people are in lockup, the more money I get. That's dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of things happening now. Even judges or mandatory, and it's a lot of things happening that secures money to the penal system.
But the flip side of that is what to some degree the governor's office is seeing, and more legislators are seeing, is like, well, we can't afford this. Michigan spends more money on prisons than on higher education. We spend more money on putting people in jail than any other Great Lakes state. And we don't have better crime rates for it. So people are starting to realize this punitive, lock them up, get them out of sight approach isn't working. And we need to look for other alternatives.
So, I'm going everybody to get your information so that they can get in touch with you. And, please, call Chuck, and is that what you want people to do to get involved? And
absolutely. Give us a ring. If you're looking to be a volunteer support, we'll be trying to connect you with the groups in the school district or in the dispute resolution center. They're always working to train and equip more leaders there. But then there's also the policy side. How do we push forward?
Yes. What can people do?
Right. Some people are on board. How do we help support other schools, other administrators, other units of government to say, let's take this approach? And the other thing, back to some of this has to happen in Lansing too. Back to the recidivism rate, back to looking to other ways. When we throw somebody in jail and we say, okay, we're going to forget about you, we're not going to give you any vocational training, we're not going to give you any mental health support, we're just going to put you in a cell and hope you come out better.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to come out better, I'll tell you that.
It's a subculture to me. It's just, rehabilitation, I don't see it happening statistically, but it's just like a subculture. It's a life within a world within a world.
But then the other question we've got to be asking ourselves as a community is, most of these people aren't serving life sentences. Most of them are going to come back into our community.
Yeah.
What's going to happen then?
Right.
There have been efforts to say, well, if they come back to a setting and they've got no job, they've got no housing, they've got no support, where are they going to turn? What are they going to do?
I think that's, people are having that problem right now in their communities, or even families saying, place to live or.
Right. So in Washtenaw County, we had a program funded through the state of a prisoner reentry initiative, and what they found is, that first 24 hours after somebody gets released from lockup, that's absolutely vital. Is there somebody who's helping connect them to safety services, helping them navigate life on the outside? And if not, they're going right back to what they were doing that got in lockup. And then beyond that, how do we provide support? Here's the thing. It costs less to do this program than the state would pay locking the people up who go without this program and reoffend. So it overall, it saves money. But the folks in Lansing have cut the funding for the program.
Oh, wow.
And this is a lot of a conservative sort of Tea Party. We don't want fiscal responsibility, but it's just short-term thinking. It's
so that's an extension of what you're doing in the school systems.
So there's different layers, there's different ripples of this. We need it from before there's a problem, when there's a first problem, trying to keep people from getting into the system. We need better things that are happening if people are in the system, if they are in lockup, and we need better reentry programs for when people get out.
Well, what can people do? I mean, I'll flash your information. I'm so excited because you've been working and you have made some leeway because you do have it in the Ypsilanti public school system.
Absolutely.
So that's a start. Are the parents getting involved? And have you been able to recruit a lot of the parents to help you, or do you need them to, or what can they do?
Well, one of the things that the program in the Ypsilanti schools is really pushing is getting the kids involved, right, and getting the peer mediators. And one of the things they're doing is, it's not just the good kids they're trying, the good kids, the kids who haven't had disciplinary problems. They're trying to get some of the kids who have had problems.
Well, yeah, and they're good kids too.
Exactly, they're good kids too.
Good kids.
And kids and they've got an authenticity. They've got a credibility that just the scholastic high achiever, high marks on the report card kids don't necessarily have. They can have conversations that the teacher's pet can't.
I watching young people and raising young people and it's like they're role models. I mean, when you see the hustler, or you see the pimp, or they're so glamorized in the media, and you really don't think about the professor or the doctor or the educator as being somebody that you want to emulate. And just trying to just get the attentions of the children in the school so that they can see that being smart is good, and passing that test or studying for that test is power and knowledge, and to make it attractive and make it something that they want to aspire to, to eliminate the social, dangers and the peer pressure, and you just want to try to get in there and do what you can to eliminate that from their lives, so that they would work harder to build their education and support the school systems and things like that.
And there's a lot of great things happening, but I'll be honest, there's a lot more to do. Some of it we've got a hand in. Some of it, there's a lot of great people doing it, but it's all hands on deck.
But you're making a start, and I just don't want to see it go away, or to see it cut down, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, so hopefully, again, this current administration of the Ypsilanti Public Schools has been very supportive. And like I say, we're hearing from teachers that say, finally, I've got some tools, I've got some alternatives.
Now, what are the children saying? Have you gotten any more feedback other than the young lady? Or I know there's other cases you just might not be aware of right now. But I know to gain the students' trust and to get them to talk to you and to express why they're acting out, or is really important. And like you said, it took 2 days to get this young lady to open up and talk to you. Are you getting any feedback from the students? Is the climate changed or anything?
Yeah, that changing that climate is going to be a long-term struggle. But and I'm not the one who's in the classrooms and in the school myself, so I'm a little bit distant. But I was talking to, again, the person who is, and she's seeing some of that shift. She's seeing some of that, at least the ability to have the conversation. What is it going to take to get, and talking and engaging the students with it, engaging the kids. And you and I were talking earlier about the importance of teachers who are going into these schools, or administrators going into these schools, understanding, in some cases, the culture that they're going into.
Okay, because it's something just popped into my head, and you know, to me, it kind of lines up with what you're doing, and that's even unwanted pregnancies. I mean, there's a lot of issues within the school system that maybe the teachers could help, you know, reinforce, because now, you know, they don't get the kind of feedback from the social service department. This is Chuck Warper Husky's information. He's director of the Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice, and we want you to make sure that you get the information so that you can contact him, because we want the school systems to have the tools and the resources to take care of the children.
Absolutely.
And you know, that is a real problem. So where do you go from here?
So where we go from here, so in terms of the viewers, please get in touch. There are a lot of things to do. And we talked about it a little bit. Some of it's in the school, some of it's in the juvenile justice system. Some of it's in the community. And wherever you are, you can play a role. Whether it's getting in touch with your elected officials, either the ones at Lansing, the prosecutor, the judge, to say you support this kind of approach. Contacting the folks in city councils.
Okay, is that what you want people to do?
That's one part of it. That political, that policy side of it is the other.
Okay.
The second part of it is the volunteering. Maybe that's through a formal program, like volunteering with the Dispute Resolution Center or some of these other programs. But the third thing is, we've all got kids in our lives.
Yeah.
You know, we've all got kids in our lives. It's a little bit of a different thing, but one of the pushes that the Sheriff's Department is doing on this is they're calling it 100 Men of Washtenaw.
Okay.
And what they're realizing is there's a lot of kids who need positive male role models.
I have never heard of that, Chuck.
Well, it's they've been talking around it about a year. Again, I've got a tremendous respect for our current sheriff, Sheriff Clayton.
Okay.
And what they is talking to some faith leaders, talking to some folks in the communities. They're seeing there are a lot of women.
Okay.
From all backgrounds who are rolling up their sleeves. They're getting involved in kids' lives.
Okay.
But sometimes kids, especially boys, when they look at the role models they see, they're not seeing a lot of positive role models in their lives.
No, and you know, and that's what I mean. They see all the hustlers and you know the people that are breaking the law. Well, they don't respect the law, and the law. Well, you know, for especially minorities, the law is not your friend.
Right.
So to obey the law and do the right thing, you know, it's not generic. It's not what you know they want to be. And so they don't try to emulate or be like, you know, people that are law abiding. They don't see that as cool to, you know, to try to study and education. I mean, as far as they're concerned, the system doesn't work for them. Learning, what's the point of learning that when you follow me in a car, you know, pick me up and it costs me, you know, you on me, I can't breathe.
Absolutely.
They don't feel like that this world is theirs, that they have a right to enjoy and live in this world, that the law is going to protect them. Right. You know, and so they don't want to, they don't follow the rules. It doesn't benefit them.
Right. Right. And there's a whole lot we could get into with that, because you're right. But and changing that, you know, whose responsibility is it to change that? Some of that has to do with our public officials. Some of that has to do with our law enforcement. Again, I think Sheriff Clayton's really tried to shift his department on that. But it's going to be, you know, the generations of what you talk about. It's going to take generations to turn that around. Right?
Yes. But we have to take one step at a time, and because you are making such leeway, you're doing something. You're not just talking about it. You know, you put it to action, and it is working currently in the Ypsilanti school system. And I wish that, you know, I hope that people realize how special that is. You know, and I'm praying that God will bless it and build it, because it's just no escape for children.
Mm-hmm.
In the school system, either you're right or it's black or white, and you know there's no work and even no tolerance. I mean, there were just a lot of things that were just implemented. And when my son was in school, I know we were getting close to running out of time. A teacher said no tolerance, and I said, okay, how many steps do we get to no tolerance? Because that, to me, that was just ridiculous.
Right.
You know, okay, no tolerance, fine. So when do what are the steps to get into it?
Right.
Because it's no way that you're going to have a young 8-year-old boy in your school system and tell me that no tolerance. Where does he go? To prison?
Yeah, because we all make mistakes, and if we start throwing away anybody who makes a mistake,
I was like, okay, how do we get there?
Right. We can't be throwing away our people,
right? Because he exists. He's in the world, and it's up to us to build him and to teach him.
Right.
So what are we teaching him?
And if we're teaching him that if you make a mistake and your skin's dark, you get thrown away, that's not the right lesson.
Yeah, well, this is Chuck Warpahusky. He's a director of Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice. This is address 1679 Broadway in Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48105. This is telephone number 734-663-1870. And this is his email address. Please write it down and get in touch with him. We want you to remember us. This is Things of Interest. We come on Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. and Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on Comcast Cable Channel 17. And this is our information. If you would like to get in touch with us, we'd be happy to refer you. If you need be. We didn't have a DVD today, Chuck, and I'm missing it, but I really, really enjoyed talking to you. I didn't want to take any time away from what you wanted to talk about. So next time, as we, hopefully you'll come back on, we'll slow down. But this is so important, and I can't stress enough how important it is to have things in the school system that deals with the social climate of the children's life. I mean, and to me, it's unfortunate that a lot of teachers don't have to take like African American history, and I don't know what other minority history they have to take. Because even in like I'm using my hand gestures. A lot of people, that's kind of typical. A lot of people, it's not. My voice, my volume is a little might be higher than other people. They're not meant to turn anyone off or be disrespectful. So there's a lot of things that we just don't see.
Teachers need to understand that.
Right.
They need to understand the culture and the background that their kids are coming from.
Right.
Just like they need to help train those kids to say, okay, this might be your family. You need to know how to work in your family.
Yes.
If you want to work in other settings, you need to learn how. You need to learn how to learn to figure out. Okay, it's a corporate boardroom. This is how it goes. It's whatever setting. This is how it goes. They need to be able to learn that. Teachers need to teach that. They also need to learn it themselves to be able to deal with the kids they're teaching.
Yeah, so that we can, like we get into a multicultural. We're moving into a multicultural, but a lot of the older the younger people are really blending better. But there's a
long way to go.
We've got a long way to go. We don't deal socially. We see each other in the supermarkets. We don't worship together necessarily.
Right.
So we're still kind of, out of each other's lives, but we're in each other's life. I mean, I could be your X-ray technician, and I could be your dental assistant. I could be your child's teacher, and it's still crazy.
I was talking to Ben Edmondson, the principal of Roberto Clemente, the other day, and he said two things that were powerful. One is he sees Washtenaw County as a dropout factory for African American boys.
Okay.
So that tells me we're doing something wrong, right? Some people who try to blame the victim and blame the kids. I think that means that we have a responsibility to do better as a community.
Okay.
In the schools, in the safety net around the way. And one of the challenges, he said, is kind of like what you're talking about people understanding where each other are coming from.
Yes.
He says we need to do a better job of bridging this gap. He's seeing the dropouts happening among African American boys.
Okay.
Who are the teachers? Who are the support services? It's white women.
Yes.
They need to find ways to bridge that culture gap.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited. We're just going to go off talking because I really, really enjoyed having you come on. I hope that you come back. We're going to talk about private prisons the next time.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Sounds great.
Okay, and you all, I hope that you got the information. Please contact us. We'll be glad to refer you. God bless you. We'll be back before you real soon.